Hey, what is up, Design Squad? Can you hear me? Can you see me? I had, as per usual, a lot of technical issues and difficulties connecting. I hope this actually works and you can actually see me now. If so, leave an emoji or something in the chat, or just drop me a note that I know that we're good to go and we're good to start and you can actually see me. I can see in the preview that at least I'm live, so I guess I'm gonna kickstart, not to waste anyone's time, because I know that some of the people are gonna watch a replay. I see. Okay, can you hear you? Can you see me, though? If you can see me, just drop a line so I know exactly that you can actually get visual input as much as just auditory. But thanks everyone for joining. I can see that there are 8 of us now on a live stream. I have 4 big prototypes to present to you and 4 big submissions. I first thought that it's going to be just 3 of them. Then we got the late one because YouTube blocked one of the comments interpreting that it was a spam. But thanks so much for joining, everyone. Let's dive into repeaters. So this challenge was, it was to do with the repeaters functionality from Axure. And if you know, Axure is a power tool, a muscle tool, and what it makes it so is functionality like repeaters. It allows you to basically replicate in a smart way a template, giving it properties, giving it information, passing content, imagery, text, you name it, it doesn't really matter. And in accordance, if you use, let's say, it with global variables, you can prototype lifelike prototypes which scale very easily. And I don't think there's anything new to this, especially for those who are more experienced with Axure. But once you nail repeaters, once you nail global variables, you know how to plug those things together, you are basically free to go, and like nothing is gonna stop you. You can prototype things which just gonna blow your users' minds and your business stakeholder minds, whoever wants you to prototype or whoever wants to see what your ideas come to life. And so let's not waste everyone's time. I'm gonna jump right into it. And the first prototype is submitted by I'm always butchering everyone's name, so sorry for that. But the first prototype is by AOZ Design. I think it's AOZ, AZ. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm really sorry. But this UXer, this designer, has been submitting quite a few entries throughout the sessions, and it's always kind of like like a professional quality, as in like it's super advanced. I know that English is not their first language, which is totally fine. And so, just the love for a craft, I can tell immediately, when I see a prototype which has something which I need to kind of like second guess, how did you pull that off? And on my screen, you see this prototype they submitted for a challenge, which is what we say is a notebook adding prototype. And let me just exit. As you can see, it almost like you were landing on this, what to me felt like a operational system design, almost like an app which allows you to add different notes to it. And you can basically, tap on that plus, let's say. You can enter some sort of title, which could be something like note 1. Well, that's very not original, right? But let me just maybe add a few scribbles and stuff like that, something very generic and very cryptic. And if I save it, then that would add it. As you can see, he added some feedback to the user. It would add to notes. Here you can see this number updated, meaning he definitely is tracking the global variables to check the numbers, right? So he incremented that number up, and now I have 2 notes. And if I open that shelf on the right-hand side of that sidebar, I can see my note next to that lorem note. So if I, let's say, just preview it, a modal, for lack of a better words, like an overlay pops up, which I can edit or close. And if I click edit, I can just rewrite and add more details to it. And all of this is a repeater template. As you can see, this is a repeater template which he brings up. So these items is a repeater. One of them is one of the templates, one of the entries in a database. The second was the second entry, and if I would add another one, or I would probably bin, as you can see it says empty, that's where I would suggest you to rename the copy for this and say something like clear all, or something a bit more obvious to the end user and myself, let's say, or anyone else, because this, I guess it's, again, is because it's not, English is not their first language, and so it's a direct translation, but nevertheless, you can always update that very easily, or, you know, delete notes and things of that nature. So that's a functionality we can explore. And let me just add another note before going to a different prototype. If you have any questions of how it's done, I can see that AOZ design, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly again, they just joined the chat, or they've been already around. So if you have any questions of how they achieved this and how they pulled it off, you can just drop a note. I'm gonna try to answer it, but you know, to make it just, I think the actual authors should actually tell how we did it. Let me just add that second note, and as you can see, my second note lives alongside the first note. And again, use of repeaters, you know, you almost can't tell exactly what it was. I see there is some sort of bug. I guess it dragging the values into another repeater. Oops, what did I do? Okay, I think the prototype crashed for whatever reason. Let's try again really quickly. But if I'm correct, I think when you preview your node, here it just appeared. If I would just preview, that loads it into a repeater, because if I click again, maybe I'm not correct, but it kind of like that bug seemed like it's a different database entry. Nevertheless, really cool prototype, because it gives you an idea of, you know, how complicated you can make your prototypes, and, you know, in the end, users might not be able to tell that it's a prototype, right? Cool. Next prototype is by Tia, and it's a website basically, but it's I would say it's quite advanced website at that. It looks pretty nice, you know, it's quite high fidelity, well crafted. Some of the bits are obviously prototypes. Some of the bits are kind of like, you know, you wouldn't probably as a user recognize that it's a prototype. It's, you know, quite well laid out, good visuals and things of that nature. And it's all about these events. And, you know, it's called Gold Pride Events website, which kind of like reminds me of my you know, personal development in the design, because when I started, I used a lot of different cases like this, and you know, they eventually became paid cases, because if you show something like this to a potential small business owner, you can immediately get them on board and tell, okay, this is something I can do for you for X amount of money, and tell them that this is something, you know, you can do. Let me just zoom out so I do justice and encapsulate everything. But without waffling, Tia described a lot of different bits. I'm gonna walk you through some of the bits which I found very interesting. So, you know, these lists of different information. If I would, let's say, go to the decor page, which lists everything they offer to you. Let me just load it in. As you can see, there are these items. And again, this is a prime example of how you can use a repeater, because you can make a lot of different repetitive lists of data. So she just needed to describe, you know, one item as a template, saying that this is an image, this is a title, description, and a button. And when she used the database, she defined herself to import the data and link it together. And all what's needed to be done is just tell how many items she wanted to replicate, and Axure just does it like that. It's immediate. And so that's pretty damn cool. And as you can see, she also implemented these funky different categories, meaning if I slide, it kind of like slides in, as you can see, with a title, with different items, elements, and you can then add it to a cart. And I think, if I'm correct, there is some items when I checked first which you could add to a cart. Oh, actually it does add everything. I guess the only thing which she could improve, and I would recommend to everyone to consider, is always feedback to the end user. Because as I just clicked on add to cart. I didn't know that it was added. So maybe you could add a counter, because obviously you just added 2 items. So every time you click, you could just, an interactive pattern, make a check that, hey, if it's clicked, add 1 to your global variable value, and then add that global variable value to let's say the text field to then improve on it. So that's quite cool. You can proceed to the checkout. You can do a lot of different bits to a website, and of course it's limited because it's a prototype naturally. But still, I like that, you know, what we did to with this website. Now, other bits which you know, just to explore a little bit of what we did. As you can see, there are quite a few pages in the prototype itself, which is, you know, just to highlight the architecture of the actual prototype and how it's done. One of the things we highlighted were the booking meetings. So as you can see, we allow users to book different meetings. There is a contact page, there is a login and sign up. And I think if I, let's say, login and sign up, which definitely worked, I think it was admin and gold admin, then it takes me to that admin page, as you can see on the left hand side, and I'm skipping a little bit just to make it justice. But when you have like a CMS prototype behind the scenes of what would admins see, and that's, I think, most relevant for, let's say, you know, owners of that business, where they can, let's say, check exactly what's in the inventory, I guess. They can also administer the meetings itself. As you can see, she uses some tables. Again, it's not really, you know, I don't know how much repeaters of this is used, and maybe Tia, you can write a note in the chat how much of it you used. For example, here I think it's a table. I don't know if it's a repeater. And hey, everyone who joined, by the way, I'm checking the chat as I go, so feel free to leave your notes, leave your ideas, leave your questions. I can then, you know, pick it up and we can explore it together. But it's, again, really cool prototype, and it's kind of like end to end, considering, you know, both journeys of what the actual customer of a business would see, as well as what, you know, our admin, our I guess business owner, stakeholder could see in the end. Again, leave some notes. Drop some notes in the chat of what you think about these prototypes, your ideas. How would you improve it so you can actually share feedback with people who actually did it. Let's say we have the IOSA's notes. We had this website, I guess, you know, where you can actually do different things. But feel free to just drop them a note so that you know what's up. And I see already a few notes dropped in from Tia, who's the author of this prototype. And she or they actually saying that it was a table and use repeaters for a decor catalog. Exactly what I was just walking through with these different items, which is damn cool. One thing, again, just to add a bit of a feedback to the user, that hey, you added something in, you know, in a shopping cart, and it could be as simple as just switching the button with a tick and then switching back to the current state maybe. And, you know, once that's done, you can kind of maybe indicate again that you added something, just to add a meatball basically with a number, you know, for lack of a better term, and maybe even add a pricing. So take that value excluding VAT, put it there, and maybe have a total as well, things of that nature. So I would keep on exploring. I really like it because it, you know, it adds other pages to it. Cool. All right, let's jump into the next prototype, and let me just open it. Next prototype is from someone who's also on this live stream, and again, I don't know if I'm gonna butcher your name, but it's W Lin. So W Lin is basically giving us an application prototype for assignment management for, I guess, teachers and students. Just to make it justice, I'm not gonna show you again just, you know, what's behind the scenes, what's the architecture like, and what pages and views she has or he has. I'm just gonna show you exactly what's there. And this is basically almost like a tuition center for teachers. I might be butchering again, you know, the purpose of it. So W Lin Drop us a note if you want to share some, other bits of how you think the teachers would, use it maybe, or what's the purpose, what's the meaning of it. But what I observed just from very few bits of what I checked is that here's the teachers who are basically are able to post an assignment online for, their pupils, right? And if I, let's say, would add a new item, I would get a modal where I can check an assignment name. And it could be something like assignment live stream for vaexperience. Oh, I ran out of characters. Maybe that's an improvement. But let me just add a few random notes. I can add a date. July, let's say 2020. 22, sorry, and when posting it, adds this. And that's where I presume that's where you use the repeater. Because I can see that this is like your prime, master main template, right? Can expand the details. I can see the date I inputted, just like this, and then I can see the notes. So I guess this is your administration of those things. And if I add another one just to try out, let's say that this is the assignment for someone else and when it's due. Let's make it random. Then I post it and then boom, it added another task basically. So that's pretty cool. So you use the repeater to keep on adding different bits. And I think I had a video for those who want to understand how to do this. And I think the first prototype from IOSA was similar, where you could basically add different list items, the new items, as per user request, just reusing the template. And I can see another comment for my card. How do I override remove the first blank item? Maybe Tia, we can come back to that, because I think we can solve it really quickly. It's just quite hard to switch back to a previous prototype, but just hold on to that question. If anyone has any questions, by the way, or any suggestions, any kind of constructive feedback bits, leave them on the chat. We are definitely going to come back to it, and then we can carry it on. But I wonder what this does. Let's see if I can remove. Okay, so this is a feature what we wanted to. If I would select one of the bits, let's say this one, I could just remove it. And then you're removing it from repeater. I see what you did. One thing what I would do, maybe I would make it a bit simplify this interaction. I see that you added a node, but there is no need to make kind of like new patterns. You can make it a bit simpler for your users and a bit easier, because you could assume that they would get used to this, to adding and removing it, but you could immediately just add deletion option here somewhere, let's say in a corner, and just allow them to quickly remove it. And maybe if it's so important that you want them to go through the steps and consider if they want to remove it, maybe you could just ask with a modal and say, hey, do you really want to remove this item? And that's a point for everyone, I guess. Just a good interaction pattern to make it much more usable is to, not hide functionality. If you hide it, chances are you don't really need it. And sometimes the things you hide, you probably it's not. I'm thinking of examples in, let's say, services where sometimes designers hide, cancellations, deletions, unsubscriptions, things of that nature, which is it kind of hinders the user experience, because we need to also consider of how to take things out and not just keep on adding. So that's one of the improvements, and I think it's a good prototype, and I like what you did, because it also has this type of thing. And I would like to also see in the next iteration is why not to also add the functionality to add actual people who you want to take that assignment. That's kind of, I guess, a challenge for you to take it, one notch up and just challenge yourself. And maybe, as you're creating the thing, also have the students which you want to assign. And it could be that it's just a toggle switch as you select, bam, 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 you post it, and then, the students get it. Because I like these type of tiny interactions where you added, the motion and it's meaningful and you actually expand on this, but you can then take it a notch, and add a bit more fidelity, and then you're gonna have like almost like, wow, this is amazing type of prototype, and it already is. I'm really impressed. Now, I was just covering the teacher interface, the admin interface. As you can see, there is also a little bit more to this, where we have the homepage. As you can see, there is that's where I think I should have started, but because WLIN, they basically shared with me that specific repeater page. We can think holistically, right? We can think about experience as a whole, because it's not just about the patterns we use to solve issues. It's actually what experience we're shaping. And this is it's a cool website with different animations, which I saw before. And it might not seem like that on on a live stream, because there might be a delay, but there is quite a few different animations and jumps, and I see it's all created in Axure, so that's really cool, just to give some credit. Then there is, of course, login pages, and there is, I guess, a flow, which I don't think I'm gonna give justice, because you have to, again, register as a student, you have to log in as a teacher or student, I guess, and it takes your respective page. So you can see there are quite a few different bits here. And then, for example, as a student viewing the page, you would get your assignments on a kind of like a separate view, right? And that's where you can read what you have to do. You can chat, I guess, with other people and things of that nature. So WLIN captured quite a few ideas here. Another thing I would challenge you is, whenever you post a new assignment from this interface, use a global variables to capture that, and showcasing the student page, show it here as an additional item. Because I tell everyone the same thing, is that if you can showcase the holistic view of combined journeys, you can let's say you are pitching this idea to your client or your business stakeholder or your product team, and you're like, oh, it would be cool if teachers could add this bit and then students could view it. So why not to show it? Because every time you add this item and post, you can tell a bit, like, really good catchy story, saying that on the other hand, someone like John in their dormitory is gonna open it up on their iPad, and boom, there is this thing I just added. And you have a catchy story, and you actually showcase different bits, to your client, let's say, or to your team, or whatever. Cool. I see a lot of different questions, and actually chat is going on, which is cool. For my proto, I have a problem with the dynamization of colors, which did not keep the same state. Added new data, and that's a first prototype. And as you can see already, people share insights on how they could improve each other. That's exactly the point of this, is that community of design, so you can share how to do better. And WLIN is saying, but I would need a lot of global variables. You do, but you also don't, because again, you need to think, why are you doing this? Because you're prototyping to get feedback, right? So just capturing one example is sometimes enough to make it justice. I see a lot of, again, it's kind of like an Axure pet peeve, or kind of like, like a never-ending rabbit hole you can just drop in and you would never return, because you could add so many things, but in the end, is it worth actually doing it? Because if you spend weeks trying to coin one journey, one idea, and in the end it's about making something happen, handing it over, validating it, getting more feedback, it's almost like, is it really worth it? And as I see another comment from Dominique, and he's saying, hey, sometimes it's better to simply explain this flow on a single page to avoid managing repeater data inside a global variable. Again, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. It's, you can do a lot of different bits. Consider the purpose, consider the means. Again, you always have budget, you always have deadlines. Work backwards, consider how much you can do for that time. If this is just your exploratory case, then I would just go crazy and try to find the limit of Axure, so that you learn and understand exactly what you can achieve when the time comes and so you're ready to tackle the challenge and make it meaningful. That's how I started, let's say back in the day, almost like a decade ago. Then I would, I just got into Axure. I literally made prototypes of systems end to end and tried to make it lifelike, with an idea that it's only a practice run. It's not what I would do in a real life, because in a real life, you're definitely not going to have, weeks or even days to explore very specific, very small, different journeys, because again, it comes down to costs versus the return. And if it costs you much, the return is, minimal, then it's all about how you quickly and rapidly can tell your story and validate it for users. Is it possible to transfer data to several pages instantly? Yes. Yes, it is. That's exactly what global variables are about, because whenever you assign a value to global variable, it's gonna stay there for any page afterwards until you close a browser or until your user closes a browser. So whenever you assign, let's say you have variable 1, which is called, I don't know, John, and you assigned a value 1 to John, every time you're going to look afterwards for John value, you're going to get 1. Until, of course, you override it. So it's a container which is always there, and it's always global to be accessible at any point. Cool. Right. So that's a third one. We have another one to go. And this is a thing from Dominic, the same Dominic who is in the chat. And it's the player selection with some awesome motion design. Let me just bring it up. I don't want to crash the live stream because of so many screens and so many different bits. But Dominic, maybe you can also add a few notes after I'm done, because you might want to do a justice. But I think Dominic was also submitting some other bits back in the day in other challenges, and there are quite a few bits, which is, it's a high fidelity motion driven prototype. And what he said is that he used repeaters to basically to portray this information about certain characters. So for example, imagine that this is an entry to a game. Maybe it's a web-based game, maybe it's an actual video game for consoles or PCs or you name it. It doesn't really matter, but as a user, you can basically mouse over certain character. So for example, let's pick Mario. There is this transition, which I don't know if you noticed, because there could be a delay. There is usually a delay in live streams, which I hate. But you basically get presented with this character, which is an image. You have a title. You have a call out, I guess, a slogan or just a dialogue line. You have these different bits. And if you noticed, it just animated everything. I hope you did. You then get the start option to proceed forward. And Dominique, if you can actually add a line in the chat, so let everybody know if I'm correct and I understood your note, it was that you created a template for each of these characters right here, and you have Mario's image, you have this name and everything else, and these are the repeater items which you override every time, right? And all colors are dynamic. But is it dynamic from motion, or did you also did something with the repeaters for that? Let me just click start to finish the flow, by the way. But you're gonna see that there is a lot of funky stuff. I'm gonna probably, if Dominic doesn't mind, might just drop this link in the chat later in a bit. But as you can see, there is a lot of different transitions here, and you can actually play with it, and there's a lot of different animations, which I like. Let me see if I can restart it so we can do another run. And as you can see, other characters, if I would, for example, pick something like Princess Peach, there is a different color to each character and different representation, right? And so just from that chat note from Dominic, you're saying that all colors are also dynamic. So I wonder if okay, I used the repeater data for color, and skills are managed by value to set size. Yes. Okay, so you did something, I guess, pretty damn cool, where you stored properties as repeater database entries. which I presume might have been like a column which said color, and inside, each line for each of the entries, you might have said yellow for Peach, red for Mario, and I guess once you drew that out, I can see you already saying yes, exactly. Then once you drew out this information on the screen I have right now, you just checked what's the color, what's the information, and just portrayed it. Nice. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. And let me check just others. So we do justice to it again. Nice choices. As you can see, the skills and everything else. Let me just check if I can spot. Yeah, it animates as well, so use some animation too. And the add player. Okay, so you basically use repeater here as well as to portray this information here. And that's where I think the magic of repeaters is. Again, not to waffle too much because I don't want to bore you, everyone on live stream, but you see, you don't have to recreate like several dynamic panels. You can just take one like this, and you like nobody would be able to tell that this is like, a prototype. Nobody would be able to tell that this is not just one template which loads different information in and then adapts and showcases something else. So that's the beauty of the repeaters. And I think it's, if you go from one prototype to another prototype, and we kind of like, I think the best bit about it is that we have now a selection of showcasing of what you can do with repeaters. And of course there is so much more, but you've now realized that, hey, there is something you can, if you master it, you can achieve a lot. So yeah, it is cool. I can see the comments are also saying that. Now to get back to your questions, if you have any questions by way or suggestions or constructive feedback to each other, drop it on in the thing so that you can actually talk about it. Dominic is saying, and how the character only this one have true value to having an animation? I could even set animation A or animation B. Yeah, so that's I guess you would just use conditional statements and say, hey, if this is that character, then do this. If this is the other, do that. That's exactly, it's almost like an end-to-end consideration of the thing. Let's add another one. So you can add a Bowser as an additional one. Nice. Cool. I think that summarizes our repeater submissions, but there are some questions from Tia, which I promised to get back to, which is basically for my card, how do I override, remove the first blank item? Okay, that what it was. So I guess every repeater, once you define a template, is gonna have this type of representation. The easiest way to just remove that first template until the data is loaded in is to simply hide it. So you could literally, there's a lot of hack ways, I guess. You could hide it by just simply adding a white overlay over it, like a block. That's a cheat, like a cheat trick, because if you just needed to immediately do something about it and you were limited to 15 minutes instead of spending 2 hours, I would do that. I would just literally add something, or I would encapsulate your repeater templates in a dynamic panel and just cut it out, so you push that repeater outside, and then whatever comes next appears like it's on stacked up. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, by the way, but there is a lot of different small ways you could do that. Also, what you could do is to pre-populate that with an empty data, for example, or something you could override. I think IOZ Design said another idea for your card. You can use update interaction for repeater. Exactly. So you could also update the repeater itself. You don't have to almost like, have two duplicates. If you don't know how to do it, and again, you're pressed with time, you can cheat and almost like adjust bits and overlay bits and just hide it visually, cosmetically. If you want to do it right, again, update is exactly how to do that. I wanted to add an overlay, but I have a scroll bar in the cart. I wasn't sure if it would work. I think it would. I mean, again, it's about how you press the layers together on top of each other. But if you are up for a challenge, I would suggest you to follow through your fellow, contesters, for lack of a better term, someone who participate in a challenge. I see design saying just explore how to update the entry of the repeater instead of like adding additional one. What I like to do is really just you always want a first state. So for example, if we consider, even before adding anything to a cart, if we consider this, and let's say we don't have anything in it, there should be a message that, hey, you should add something to the cart, right? So you shouldn't have the repeater, I guess, until you add to a cart. So that's another thing. So what I would do, really, keep this empty with a message saying add to a cart, or something like, hey, explore our catalog, which has the core options for you to consider for your awesome event to make it kick-ass, right? With a link maybe which leads you to this decor page. Now here, if I click to add to cart, you could then maybe add it to this. So maybe you have a dynamic panel in 2 states. You just replace a state, and that's where your repeater item lives. And then you can add what your fellow designer said. Just update the repeater asset, or switch things around, see what works basically. There's definitely a way to do that. And that's, that at least that for sure. Because sometimes when you prototype with Axure, you don't know how to do what. Is there a way to add repeater in repeater? W. Lin is asking. Yes, it is. And I'm thinking of an example which I used, recently. And I definitely use it. And I don't see why you wouldn't. Apart from you might get confused which repeater you're targeting. So you would need to clearly name which one of them it is, and then almost always refer and memorize what's inside. Again, experiment and try out, because who am I to tell you what's appropriate or not? Like, I wouldn't go that deep, and I don't think you should prototype crazy amount of things, especially knowing what the real world of UX and interaction design needs, which is usually rapid ideas, rapid prototyping, something you can come up immediately and go and talk to your developer or your product manager, your team, to say, hey, this is what I think we should do. And when they say yes, let's go test it for users and roll it out, or give it to developers, or let's go back to a drawing board. So for every hour of your work, or I guess I would say, if you spend 1 hour of prototyping, you should spend the next 5 minutes showing it to someone, be it your team, your business stakeholders, your end users. Because if you spend 10 hours and then you go back and you need to remake everything, all those 10 hours are usually mostly wasted, to some exceptions. Dominic saying you cannot actually display a message saying it is not possible. Are you saying about repeater within repeater? Let me try it out, actually. Now I'm tempted to see if that works. No, you're right. I just literally opened Axure and I tried it out. A repeater cannot contain another repeater. But I swear I've seen doing it somewhere. Maybe I've seen it repeater next to another repeater though. But either way, that's exactly why it's so. Sorry, no screenshot capture. Yeah, but I checked it. So thanks, mate, for that. I guess I was totally wrong, and W. Lin, don't even consider that because it's not possible. And even if it was possible, the new versions might not allow it, so it's not worth it. And that's again, I guess there is a functionality limit, but then I would consider if it's really worth going that deep in your prototypes, because then you might consider, hey, maybe I should just learn coding and do something more advanced. But hey, everyone, has been a blast. I hope you had fun seeing fellow prototypes, fellow UX prototyping expert prototypes, to put it, correctly. It was really nice submissions. As before, we tend to get like a few ones, and I think, as per usual, I would like to make a call out for you to suggest other challenges. So if you have any ideas for what you would want to explore next, some of you want to do something like very high level, so you might want like a UX theme challenge as a whole. So something like, hey, go ahead and, I don't know, improve COVID-19 testing flow, or improve something along that, and create an app, create an interactive prototype which showcases how to do better things with COVID-19, let's say, and how people being tested. That could be one way. Another way is, for example, go deeper for specific functionality, just like we did today with the repeaters. So it's very technical, very specific, like me telling you, hey, go explore that type of table functionality in Axure. And so if you have any suggestions, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter how crazy it is. Usually we get a lot of different technical and a lot of different crazy ones. Feel free to drop it in the chat. This chat I think it should be live for the next, I don't know, handful of minutes at least after I'm done with the live stream. As well as you can leave a comment, because this live stream is going to become a video, just like any other video on this channel, where you can actually refer it back. So if you, let's say, if any of your fellow designers said something, it stuck with you, but you forgot, or I said something and it stuck with you, go back and watch it. As per usual, if you like this video, give a like. I guess all of you are subbed to the channel, so I'm not gonna shill that, but stay tuned for more challenges, and feel free to leave a note down below if you liked it, and if you have any ideas for our next challenge. So yeah, thanks so much, and until next time.